It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
You ever have one of those moments when life feels like a slow-motion car crash? You see it coming, you try to brace for it, but somehow you still end up right in the middle of the wreckage, wondering how the hell you got there. That's kind of how this whole thing started for me. I used to think I had a pretty normal family. You know, the usual disagreements, a bit of chaos during holidays, but nothing outside the range of what you'd call functional dysfunction. My mom was loving, but dramatic. My dad was the quiet one who'd rather mow the lawn than get involved in any argument. And me? Well, I was the peacemaker, or at least I thought I was. Everything changed when my sister, let's call her Kara, decided to get married. She was always the princess of the family, the one who somehow made every event orbit around her. When she got engaged, my mom went into full-blown wedding mode. Pinterest boards, flower samples, cake tastings, the whole 9 yards. Me, I was just trying to stay out of it. I had my own life, my own stress, and honestly, I didn't think my presence or absence would make much difference. But then came the message. Hey, can you come to the wedding early and help set up? We really need family there. It would mean a lot to me. That "it would mean a lot to me" part was classic Kara manipulation. She could guilt trip a rock into apologizing. So, of course, I said yes. I showed up 2 days early, ready to haul chairs, set tables, and maybe sneak a drink or two with the other guests. But as soon as I walked into the venue, I knew something was off. Everyone was running around like headless chickens. And Kara, was in full meltdown mode. The tablecloths are ivory, not cream. She was yelling at the poor event planner. Do you think I want my wedding to look like a hospital cafeteria? I was barely through the door before my mom spotted me and dragged me into the chaos. Oh, thank God you're here. The groomsmen are late, the cake is stuck in traffic, and Kara's about to explode. Sounds like a fun party already, I said. She didn't laugh. The rehearsal that night was a disaster. Kara's fiancé, Ethan, seemed like a decent enough guy, but his best man was the kind of dude who thinks yelling "bro" solves every problem. Half the bridesmaids were more interested in selfies than the ceremony. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Kara managed to pick a fight with me about my shirt. Could you at least wear something decent tomorrow? She snapped. You look like you're going to a barbecue, not my wedding. I looked down at my perfectly fine button-up and jeans. Kara, it's rehearsal dinner, not the royal coronation. That was the wrong thing to say. She glared like I had insulted her entire bloodline. You always do this, she hissed. You always have to make everything about you. Me? About me? I laughed, but she was dead serious. And that's when I realized this wasn't about the shirt. This was about years of built-up tension. The kind that sits quietly until something stupid, like a shirt, makes it explode. The next day was the wedding. It started out beautifully. The venue looked amazing, Kara looked stunning, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. For about 15 minutes, then the storm hit. Literally. Dark clouds rolled in out of nowhere, and the outdoor ceremony turned into a chaotic rush for cover. Guests ran for the tent. The DJ's equipment got soaked, and the power went out right before the first dance. Kara, in her $3,000 gown, stood in the middle of it all, screaming at the sky like it had personally betrayed her. That's when I did the stupidest, most heroic thing I could think of. I ran out in the rain to help save the cake. Yeah, the cake. The one thing everyone said would make or break the wedding. I grabbed the stand and tried to drag it under the tent while the rain poured down like a tropical storm. Half the guests were laughing, the other half recording me on their phones. I must have looked like a soaked clown wrestling with a 3-tier tower of sugar. By the time I got it under cover, it was too late. The top layer had slid off, splattering like a crime scene. I looked up just in time to see Kara's face, that look of betrayal, horror, and pure fury. Why do you always ruin everything? She screamed, her voice cutting through the sound of rain. For a second, I just stood there, dripping wet, holding what was left of the cake. Then I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was ridiculous. Everything. The storm, the chaos, the accusations. It was all too much. I didn't even stay for the rest of the reception. I left early, soaked to the bone, half laughing, half fuming. On the drive home, I remember thinking, if this is what family means, maybe I need a break. I didn't know it then, but that wedding was just the beginning. The start of a series of events that would make me question everything: loyalty, family, even my own patience with the absurd. And trust me, the next chapters? They made the wedding look like a picnic. After that wedding fiasco, I swore I needed a break from people. No family, no drama, no emotional outbursts, just peace and quiet. So when I moved to a new city for work, I thought it was a chance to start over. Clean slate, new place, no one screaming about cake in the rain. I couldn't afford an apartment on my own though, so I started looking for roommates. That's how I met Travis. On paper, he seemed perfect. Same age, steady job, quiet. We met at a coffee shop, and he was polite, even a little awkward, which I took as a good sign. Quiet guys usually keep to themselves, right? Wrong, so very wrong. The first month was fine. We split the rent, the bills, and even took turns buying groceries. But by the second month, I started noticing things, small things at first. My milk disappearing faster than usual. My leftovers gone from the fridge. The TV remote constantly missing. Then one night, I came home late from work, tired and starving. I opened the fridge, and everything was gone. Literally everything. My chicken, my rice, even the sauce packets I got from takeout. "Hey man," I called out, trying to stay calm. "Did you eat my food?" From the couch, Travis turned his head mouth full and said, "Yeah, sorry bro, I thought you said I could have some." "Some?" I repeated, staring at the empty fridge. "You ate everything." He shrugged, totally unbothered. "I'll replace it." He didn't, and that's when the pattern began. Travis would borrow food, money, or random stuff, promise to replace it, and never actually do it. My shampoo? Gone. My phone charger? Missing. My towel? Somehow, accidentally, ended up in his room, permanently. I tried to confront him again, more seriously this time. I told him we needed to set boundaries. He nodded, acted all understanding, even said, "Yeah, man, I get it. I'll respect your space." 2 days later, I came home to find him sitting in my gaming chair, the one I'd spent weeks saving up for, wearing my hoodie, eating pizza he'd bought with my card. That was it. I snapped, "Travis, what the hell is wrong with you?" I yelled. "You can't just take my stuff like it's yours." He looked genuinely confused. "Dude, chill. We're roommates. What's mine is yours, right?" "No," I said through gritted teeth. "That's not how this works. You're not my brother. You're barely my roommate." He shrugged and turned back to the screen. That was the moment I realized I wasn't living with Travis. I was living against him. Things escalated fast after that. He started leaving dirty dishes everywhere, blasting music at 2 a.m., and bringing random people into the apartment. Once, I woke up to find a stranger sleeping on the couch. When I asked Travis who it was, he said, "Oh, that's Kyle. He needed a place to crash." "Does Kyle pay rent?" I asked. "Not yet," he said, as if that somehow made sense. "I tried everything. Reason, negotiation, even bribery. Nothing worked. So finally, I decided to kick him out. I gave him 30 days notice, printed it out like a lawyer, and even offered to help him find another place. He smiled, said, "Sure thing, man," and went right back to watching TV. 30 days passed. He didn't move. When I reminded him, he said, "Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I need a little more time." A little more time turned into 2 months. 2 months of freeloading, noise, and total chaos. I called the landlord, but apparently kicking out a roommate isn't as easy as it sounds when both names are on the lease. I started fantasizing about living alone. Silence, space, peace. I could practically hear the sound of freedom calling my name. Then, one morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke. I ran into the kitchen, and there was Travis, standing in front of a pan of burning bacon holding a beer. "Bro, relax," he said, waving the smoke away. "I got it under control." He didn't. The fire alarm went off, the sprinklers activated, and suddenly the entire kitchen was soaked. I just stood there, water dripping down my hair, watching him laugh like it was some kind of joke. That was the final straw. I called the landlord right then and there and told him if Travis didn't move out, I would. And somehow that did the trick. 2 weeks later, Travis was gone, left behind an unholy mess of broken chair and a sticky note on the fridge that said, "No hard feelings, bro." For the first time in months, I stood in that apartment alone. No noise, no missing food, no disasters. Just quiet. And you know what? It felt like heaven. But as peaceful as it was, I didn't realize the universe wasn't done teaching me lessons about people yet. Because the next person to test my patience Well, let's just say she made Travis look like a saint. Perfect. Let's wrap it up in the same vivid, conversational, cinematic style. Here comes the finale. After Travis finally moved out, I was convinced my bad luck with people had officially ended. I mean, how many more disasters could I possibly attract? I'd survived the wedding from hell, escaped a roommate straight from a nightmare. Surely the universe would cut me some slack now, right? Yeah. No. The new chapter of chaos began the day I met Linda, my next-door neighbor. At first glance, she seemed like the perfect neighbor. Polite smile, tidy yard, always baking something that smelled suspiciously good. She'd wave when I came home, chat about the weather, ask how work was going. But over time, those little chats started feeling off. Like she wasn't just being friendly, she was fishing. One day, I caught her staring out the window as I parked my car. When I got out, she pretended to be trimming her roses, but her eyes followed me all the way to my door. A few days later, she accidentally mentioned something about a package I'd gotten, one I didn't even know had been delivered yet. That's when I realized Linda was watching me. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just lonely, maybe she didn't have much going on. But then came the knock. It was around 8 p.m. I opened the door and there she was, standing with a pie in her hands and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hi, dear," she said sweetly. "I noticed you had a visitor earlier today. A young woman?" Yeah, I said, taken aback. "A friend from work," she nodded, still smiling. "Just making sure everything's all right. You never know these days, strangers and all." I thanked her for the pie, shut the door, and immediately locked it. Something about that conversation sent chills down my spine. Over the next few weeks, things got weirder. I'd find little signs that someone had been near my door. A moved doormat, footprints on the porch after rain. My mail started showing up, opened. Once, I even found a sticky note on my door that said, "Be careful who you let in." That was it. I'd had enough. The next morning, I knocked on Linda's door. She answered in her usual floral robe, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Linda," I said, trying to stay calm, "have you been going through my mail?" Her smile froze. "Oh dear, I would never. But I did notice your mailbox was open the other day. You should really be more careful." Her tone was sweet, but there was something smug underneath, like she was playing some kind of psychological game. After that, I installed a camera above my door. Just a cheap little thing from Amazon, motion sensor and all. And guess what? Within 2 days, I caught her. Walking right up to my porch at night, peeking through my window, then walking away like nothing happened. I couldn't believe it. I had proof. The next morning, I printed a still from the footage, slid it under her door, and wrote, "Stay away from my property." For a few days, things went quiet. No notes, no knocks, no weird encounters. I almost thought it was over. Then, one night, I woke up to banging on my door. Hard, desperate banging. I looked through the peephole, and there she was. "Please," she shouted. "Someone's in my house!" My first instinct was to grab my phone and call 911, but she kept yelling, "They're in there! They're watching me!" Against my better judgment, I opened the door. She was shaking, eyes wide, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. "They're listening to me through the vents," she whispered. "You have to help." I didn't know what to say. It was clear she was terrified, but also completely out of her mind. I called the police, and when they arrived, she started ranting about surveillance beams and radio signals. They took her in for evaluation, and I just stood there, watching as the flashing lights faded down the street. The next morning, I felt weirdly sad. Angry too, but mostly sad. Because for months, I'd thought she was just nosy or cruel. I never once considered she might be sick. They moved her out a week later. The house stayed empty for a while, the curtains drawn, the garden left to die. Sometimes I'd look over at it and think about how fast everything had escalated, from harmless small talk to full-blown paranoia, and that's when it hit me. Every single story, the wedding, the roommate, the neighbor, had something in common. Each time, I tried to do the right thing, be understanding, be decent, and every time it somehow blew up in my face. But you know what? I wouldn't change it. Because all that chaos, all those lessons, they taught me something I didn't realize I needed to learn, that peace doesn't come from avoiding people. It comes from knowing where to draw the line. Sometimes you've got to set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes you've got to walk away, even from people you care about. And sometimes you've got to laugh, even when everything's falling apart. Because if you don't, you'll lose your mind right along with everyone else. So now, when people ask me if I believe in karma or fate, I just laugh. I've lived enough to know that life's not out to get you. It's just trying to teach you something, usually the hard way. And that, my friends, is how I became the unwilling expert on human chaos. Now I've got to ask you guys, have you ever dealt with people like this? The friend who thinks the world revolves around them, the roommate who drains your soul and your fridge, or the neighbor who just can't mind their own business? Tell me your stories down in the comments. I read every single one, and trust me, misery loves company. Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.